MXES is the main antagonist in the Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach Ruin DLC. They're a security system tasked with keeping the Mimic trapped in the Pizzaplex's sinkhole. Not much is known about their origins, but I think they were most likely created by Fazbear Entertainment in the late 70s to early 80s. The MXES security is run on an old machine in the basement of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place. MXES is very clearly meant to be an old machine. Judging from how dirty it is, and according to the Steelwool Studios interview, MXES was designed to look old. However, one thing I've seen people overlook is the fact that the MXES security nodes are new. The security nodes are part of the MXES security inside the Pizzaplex's AR network. They lock down areas of the Pizzaplex that were previously accessible in Security Breach, so they couldn't have existed during the events of that game. Meaning that while the MXES machine is old, the security nodes are a new addition. As stated earlier, MXES was designed to keep the Mimic hidden. If you're not all caught up yet on the Mimic story, I'll recap it real quick since it's important to understanding MXES. Edwin Murray created the Mimic in the 70s to keep his son David entertained. Later on, David was hit by a car and killed. When Edwin was grieving, the Mimic approached him and signaled David's sign language for ice cream. Edwin couldn't handle this and attacked the Mimic, filling its programming with agony, which resulted in its violent behaviors. Fazbear Entertainment later obtained the Mimic, and made a line of Mimic Endos. The Endos were designed to watch performances and copy them. The Mimic Endos later began copying people in unintended ways, and Fazbear Entertainment wanted them all shut down. After Security Breach, Gregory and Vanessa are freed from Glitchtrap's influence. Sometime in between Security Breach and Ruin, it seems like they returned to the Pizzaplex to trap the Mimic. And before you say that the Mimic was trapped during Security Breach, a lot of details imply that's just not the case. If you aren't aware, the Tales from the Pizzaplex epilogue strongly imply that Burntrap's endoskeleton is the Mimic. The Mimic is described as a black burnt endo with sharp claws and bent ears, closely matching Burntrap's endo. In Ruin, the Mimic also has the same type of endo hand that Burntrap does. So it seems like the Mimic was turned into Burntrap after the epilogues. In Ruin, there's handprints across the pizza place that seem to be from Burntrap. You can even see where his sharp claws were and where his bone fingers were. Burntrap's handprint can be found in his lair and emerging from the broken vent connected to the Mimic's lair. This handprint is also from the same hand that the Mimic replaced, so it's likely that when the vent leading out of his lair collapsed, it cut off his hand, hence why it's been replaced. Since the Mimic is strongly implied to be Burntrap, we can reasonably rule out him being trapped during Security Breach. There's also another important detail. In Ruin, the Mimic uses a Glamrock Freddy walkie-talkie. Why would there be a Glamrock Freddy walkie-talkie in the pizza place? It's a location created way before the Pizzaplex opened. The only way it would have gotten there is if someone brought it there. And wouldn't you know it, Gregory's Glamrock Freddy backpack is found right outside the Mimic's lair. Here's what I think happened. After Security Breach, Gregory used his walkie-talkie to lure the Mimic into the room, and then trapped him inside. The Mimic tried to escape through the vent, but it collapsed, cutting off the Burntrap hand. And yes, I know in the elevator ending Gregory says that the Mimic has been trapped for a really long time. And that's still true. In the previously mentioned Tales from the Pizzaplex epilogues, the Mimic was trapped inside the pizza place when the Pizzaplex was under construction. It remained there up until Security Breach's gameplay, where we see him as Burntrap, and he remained there after being released from Glitchtrap's control. So it's still true that the Mimic has been trapped for a really long time, going back even before the Pizzaplex was constructed. After the Mimic was trapped, MXES was integrated into the Pizzaplex's AR network. They appear as a digital dark blue rabbit. Since they're not in the real world, they don't have a very realistic design or abilities. Their arms are disconnected from their body, and instead of legs, they have some sort of genie tail. They also don't move normally. Most of the time they have very stuttering movements and teleport around. MXES can also override security protocols, and they have control over the animatronics. If anyone enters the AR network, MXES will track them down and alert the animatronics to their location. They can also use electronic items outside the AR network to stop intruders. All of this seems to be done to keep people from discovering the Mimic. The security nodes also have a rabbit appearance, and MXES's face appears in their textures. It's never really explained why MXES and the security nodes have a rabbit appearance. There's a theory that Vanessa based them on her Vanny appearance. When Vanessa was under Glitchtrap's influence, she took on the Vanny persona to carry out his crimes. Now that she's freed from his influence, she's repurposed it into something used for good. Again, this is just a theory. Another possibility is that it's because the security mask used to access the AR network is rabbit-themed. Neither of these theories have been confirmed, but I'm a big fan of the first one. Anyways, after upgrading MXES to keep the Mimic contained, Vanessa, Gregory, and Freddy left the Pizzaplex. In Help Wanted 2, the AR network is a big focus, as it's revealed that the player's been trapped in the AR network for most of the game. However, MXES doesn't appear, maybe because the player isn't trying to deactivate the security nodes, so MXES has no reason to go after them. It's also possible that the MXES security hasn't been integrated into the AR network yet, but one of the endings seems to disprove this. In the game's Fast Force ending, the player seemingly reassembles Glitchtrap. His hand emerges from a charging pod and staff bots swarm the player. The player then becomes Maskbot, who gives Cassie the security mask. Cassie is the main character in the Security Breach Ruin DLC. Her getting the security mask is a key part in the Mimic's plan to escape. It tricks her into using the security mask to deactivate the security nodes. Since the Mimic is already setting up its plan to deactivate the security nodes, it seems like the MXES security is already integrated into the AR network. Shortly before the events of the Ruin DLC, the Mimic sends a message to Cassie, who is Gregory's friend. The Mimic copies Gregory's voice and impersonates him to trick Cassie into helping it escape. As previously shown in Help Wanted 2, Maskbot delivers the security mask to Cassie. She puts on the security mask to enter the AR network and meets Helpy. Helpy sometimes has orange eyes like the Mimic, so it seems like he's under its influence. The Mimic instructs Cassie to deactivate the security nodes so it can escape. As Cassie is deactivating the security nodes, the MXES entity appears. The Mimic tells Cassie to stay away from them. It later explains that MXES was sending a distress signal to Monty. It seems like the animatronics in Ruin are being influenced by MXES to stop intruders in the Pizzaplex. I think this is an interesting parallel to how Glitchtrap also influenced the animatronics during Security Breach. MXES and Glitchtrap are both digital rabbits that influence the Glamrock animatronics, but with one of them just being evil and the other one trying to contain an evil. It's a nice parallel that I don't see talked about enough. This also plays into the red herring aspect of MXES. During your first time experiencing Ruin, you're supposed to think that MXES is Glitchtrap. They're both glitchy rabbit antagonists controlling the Pizzaplex animatronics. But in reality, MXES is just a security program trying to keep the Mimic hidden. Back to the DLC, Helpy even mentions an antivirus, which is likely a reference to MXES. Later on, when Cassie enters the daycare attendant needs to be rebooted. The Mimic instructs Cassie to turn on the lights to hurt the moon, and she has to travel into the play structures to do so. As Cassie goes through the play structures, MXES will appear outside of them, but is unable to get inside. Cassie travels from the daycare to the Monty Golf gondola ride. Something interesting to note is that during the ride there's an AR inhibitor, which prevents Cassie from using the security mask. Later in the DLC, MXES activates AR inhibitors to keep Cassie from entering the AR network. We won't see them activate the inhibitors until later on, but it seems like MXES has already started using them. Shortly afterwards, when Cassie enters a portal in the Monty Golf catwalks, she's ambushed by MXES. They teleport towards her, but the Mimic upgrades Helpy with a signal jammer that takes care of MXES. Later, when Cassie gets to the bakery, MXES returns. They activate an AR inhibitor, which kicks Cassie out of the Vanny network. When Cassie tries to enter the bakery using the conveyor belt, MXES takes control of the giant cupcake and knocks her down. After Cassie deactivates the AR inhibitor and evades MXES, she ends up in the server room. Helpy says that MXES shouldn't be able to find her here, but in no time at all they're back. MXES is now giant, but pretty easy to avoid. After Cassie escapes the server room, she ends up in the salon. As she's disabling a security node, MXES keeps activating AR inhibitors while she's wearing the mask, which prevents her from taking it off. She eventually manages to deactivate the security node. Towards the end of Cassie's journey through Roxy Raceway, a cart activates. Cassie dodges the cart, narrowly avoiding being ran over. I'm pretty sure that MXES was controlling the cart in another attempt to stop Cassie. Later, after deactivating the security node at Bonnie Bowl, Cassie travels into an AR tunnel to get to Phaser Blast. At the end of the tunnel, Cassie encounters MXES before she's dropped into Vanny's old hideout. MXES continues to pursue Cassie as she makes her way through Phaser Blast. Fun fact, if MXES catches Cassie here, she'll be attacked by the Mini Music Men, despite them not appearing in this area. After deactivating the security node at Phaser Blast, the Mimic informs Cassie that Roxy's the final node, and needs to be deactivated. In a pretty upsetting moment, Cassie deactivates Roxy, which opens the door to the sinkhole. The sinkhole is outside of the Vanny network, so Cassie can no longer use the mask, but MXES can't follow her either. Cassie descends into the sinkhole, and enters the pizza place's basement. When Cassie eventually reaches the Mimic's lair, she also finds the MXES machine. Cassie is able to enter the AR network again, and she uses a nearby computer to deactivate MXES. MXES emerges from the machine, but before they can grab Cassie, they're pulled back into it as it's powered down. Now with MXES disabled, the door to the Mimic's lair opens. After destroying the concrete with the forklift, Cassie enters the Mimic's lair and realizes she's been tricked. Before the Mimic can kill Cassie, Roxy rushes in to save her. Shortly after this, the real Gregory contacts Cassie and gives her instructions to escape the Mimic. You can get 3 endings here, and the elevator ending mentions MXES. When Cassie escapes in the elevator, the real Gregory talks to her. He mentions that the MXES security was designed to keep the Mimic hidden, but now that Cassie has shut down the security, the Mimic is free. For now, this is the end of MXES' story, and their future in the series is unclear. I think there's still a lot to learn about MXES' origins, and that might be explored more in Secret of the Mimic. As for if MXES will return after Ruin, I'm not quite sure. It's possible that MXES could be reactivated to help stop the Mimic, but I have a feeling that's unlikely. Thanks for watching this video. If you did enjoy this, consider joining our Discord server, following me on Twitter, donating to us on Ko-Fi, and subscribing. Also, thank you so much for 5,000 subscribers. We have something special in the works to celebrate. In the meantime, check out our other videos.